the way this podcast goes, it's usually just a lot of thought process and tangents. So
yes.
Yeah, don't be afraid of tangents. Those are fine.
Tangents are
the
great.
way we're describing it, it sounds like we have our together. But that is far from
no.
it.
My lack of preparedness should have thoroughly convinced David that we are not we're not professionals here.
Welcome to the JRPG Pursuit, a podcast about all things JRPGs, from the games we play to the games we collect and everything in between. I'd like to welcome everyone to the show. My name is Abdallah, and joining me are my two incredible co-hosts.
I'm Emily.
I'm Branden.
Awesome. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the evolution of JRPGs, but we also won't be doing that alone. Today, we've joined by a special guest, a true expert in the genre, with insights spanning, the history of the genre itself. And I'd like to introduce David from David Vink.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet y'all. I am David Vink. I run the channel David Vink because I have no imagination whatsoever. And I do top 10s and reviews and all sorts of other stuff like that on my channel. News, just things that interest me as a fan of the genre is stuff that I like to cover. If I'm interested by it, I think that y'all are interested by it. So that's what I like to do. That's what I do over there on my channel. And it's a lot of fun. I've been gaming I'm 42 years old now, for quite a bit of time. I grew up on the NES and I've been playing ever since. So as far as how the genre has changed and what has started from like Dragon Warrior all the way up to like now, I lived it. I saw it with my own eyes. I know what I'm talking about. I didn't come in like Final Fantasy VII or anything like that. I'm not some Johnny come lately or anything. So yeah, I know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, well, we are all excited to have you on here, David.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely.
And definitely take from your knowledge and talk about the topic for today,
Yeah.
which is the evolution of JRPGs.
Yeah.
Yep.
The evolution of
Yeah,
JRPGs.
so Abdallah, you got something for us to kick off the talk?
Yeah, so like we want to really kind of dive into the journey, through the decades of like turn-based battles, epic stories, nostalgia, all these things that we talk about, from the groundbreaking classics to, remakes like the Dragon Quest III remake that was recently dropped. And so before we start kind of getting into that, we want to, since we have David on, kind of get an understanding of his first experiences with JRPGs and how did it really shape his perspective on the genre as a whole.
Sure. My very first RPG that I ever played was the same one that Branden played, and that was Dragon Warrior 1 for the NES. I remember I played it at my uncle's house, my Uncle David, because everybody in my family was named David. And he was a teenager at the time, and I was a little kid. I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I went over to New York, and I played it, and I was like hooked, and I was hooked on this freaking game. And then whenever I went to leave and go back home, my uncle was like, hey, do you want this game? And I'm like, yeah, are you kidding me? Duh. So I took it and I took it home, and he gave me the strategy guide and all this other kind of stuff that came with the instruction manual, like a little laminated card with the spells and the experience, things like that. And that was my very first RPG that I ever played. And I actually played through it with my brother, who was 1 year older than me, because he was a better reader than me. And he would help me, that's how young I was. He would help me read the town's dialogue so we could kind of figure out together where to go. Like, where is the tomb in Garenham, to get the harp, or where do you go to get the Staff of Rain or the Stones of Sunlight, or where are the magic keys, that sort of thing. And we played it together, and it was kind of a bonding experience for my brother and I. And it was a lot of fun. The Dragon Warrior games really did shape me and mold me into the gamer that I am today. I played that, I must have been in like first or second grade whenever I played that game. I was so young, because I remember that I played Final Fantasy in third grade. I know for a fact it was third grade that I played the very first Final Fantasy game, because I brought in the Nintendo Power Strategy Guide into a third grade class, because they had this thing called the Read and Pop, which meant that you got to bring a book in and you got to pop the soda. And I would have like a Coke or whatever. I think it was the Tab, because my mother only bought Tab. So I think I had a Tab and the magazine. And I remember that the other kids, they were jealous that I brought in a Nintendo Power, whereas they brought in like actual books. So then the next week that they had it was like a Friday thing, some girls brought in 17 magazine, and the teacher did not like that. So then they banned magazines, and I was so pissed, because I wanted to read Nintendo Power, and I was like, these stupid girls reading freaking 17 at Cosmopolitan.
How dare they?
Like,
Ruined reading time there.
Oh my god.
Yes.
That's
I'm surprised they allowed though the video game strategy guides or the Nintendo Power. So
Yeah.
that's
they
pretty
had
cool.
they had no problems with
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
Because I guess it was kiddie, whereas 17 and Cosmo
yeah, that's
wasn't.
true.
Oh, yeah,
So
maybe
yeah, at
age
the time, that's
appropriateness was
true.
a concern. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Especially
guess
for
yeah.
third graders, maybe. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then the blanket ban on magazines and magazine-shaped things—that's a bummer. Like that's
I
no
know,
fair.
had to read chapter books after that, and I'm like, I could kill those freaking girls.
Man, I tell you, you talk about your brother helping you read Dragon Warrior. I was a young reader too. I think I was in second grade when I played it. And I was so confused by
me
my
too.
first exposure to Old English.
It was Old
like
English,
the thous and
you know,
these
but
and
thou
stuff.
must.
I'm like, what is
The
this?
slime draws near. Thou hast defeated the slime.
Yeah. I didn't.
I'm like, haste, what? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
I'm the eldest,
And
so
I don't
I
think
had nobody to help me.
You
I was
yeah,
the
so
oldest
you're
too.
on
I had
your
my dad.
own.
For all my games that I played when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah.
But I think it was great though to hear like, sibling bonding time, because I had a lot of sibling bonding time too, as
Yeah.
the older sibling with my younger brother,
Yeah.
and just for any type of games. So
Yeah. I mean, people think of RPGs as like a single player experience, and for the most part it is, but you can still bond
Oh, yeah.
with other people as you play them, and you
Yeah.
can discuss strategies. I would go to school, we would discuss what games we were playing, we would discuss strategies, we would discuss, secret areas that we found or whatever. Like I remember playing Secret of Mana with my brother, and he would be the boy and I would be the sprite, because I like being the sprite. And doing the black magic and everything. So yeah, there was there's a lot of bonding that you can do
totally.
over these games. A lot of strategies that you can share and everything. It's a lot of fun to do.
And just handing off the controller, or even just like I just watched my brother play a lot of video games too back in the day, and just let him have fun and kind of maybe help him with directing a little bit, because he was a lot younger than I was. But
Yeah. A lot of my
great time.
my favorite memories growing up is sitting around watching my friends or anybody else play RPG, like JRPGs and things like that. So even though it is like a one player game, it really doesn't have to be. I mean, it's just like a
No. Well, look
Yeah, I
how
don't-
success of streaming right now.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
True.
I feel like that's
True.
the
That's
the
next level.
That's
of,
so true, actually.
Ultimate bonding times with people playing games.
Watching your parasocial friend play video games is like basically. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
I'm not
So
being
do any
derisive.
of
Like
y'all
that's
stream like right now? Do you guys do streaming?
No.
I have.
Emily,
I
don't
tried
you
it
know,
a couple
Branden, do you?
times. I can't. It's not for me. I don't know. I just can't do it.
Okay, so I did do it for
I know
many
you did
years.
do it. Yeah.
And it was kind of a bonding experience. Yeah, it was definitely a bonding experience, but there was also definitely that parasocial relationship that you're talking about that definitely happened as well.
And you
But,
also have to
it
be
was fun.
entertaining, right? Like the entire
Yeah.
time.
You got to be on the
Whereas
whole time, right?
For me, like when I play games, I like to chill and relax. And so that's why I haven't ventured
Yeah.
into that.
I always
area
felt
yet.
like it would be harder with RPGs, like streaming RPGs
Yeah.
and trying to be like
Yes.
It's a tricky.
focused on the story and what you need to do, and also
Yeah.
trying to keep track of the chat and things like that. So like,
Yeah. And there's all these cutscenes. Do you just wait and like let them everyone listens to it together and you make some side commentary? Or if there's like no spoken dialogue, you have to narrate everything. I don't know. That just sounds so
So
tiring.
I know that Super Derek, he narrates the dialogue
does,
and
yeah.
he creates little voices and things like that
Yeah.
whenever he does it. I personally did a lot of retro games, and I would just kind of comment on the dialogue or be like, this is really dumb, like, or just whatever it was that it was. I wouldn't narrate it. I would just kind of give my commentary on it and just kind of go through it
Yeah.
or whatever. But then I only did a couple of like the more modern games. Like whenever I did Final Fantasy X, I would be quiet for the cutscenes unless something really stupid happened, and I would just laugh my ass off. So
There's a few things in Final
There are a few
Fantasy
moments
X
there.
where that might have applied.
yeah,
yeah.
it is
the laughing
cheesy.
scenes, right?
Well, that's
The
a
laughing
big one.
scenes, some of the Yuna scenes.
There's a lot
Some
of
of that
cheese.
stuff.
There's a lot of cheese in that game.
Yeah,
That's the charm,
a
right?
lot of cheese.
Yeah, it's a
It's-
product
yeah,
of its
finally,
time.
Some of the Waka scenes, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Waka was such a character. Yeah, that was it's truly a product of like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It blew my mind to learn that Waka is voiced by Bender from Futurama, like
Oh,
the
really?
same
I didn't know
guy.
that.
Yeah, the same guy.
Huh.
That's crazy to me.
I'll have
I
to
don't know.
listen
Little piece
to
of
it
trivia
again.
for you.
It's been a while
The
since
range
I
of a
listened.
lot of talented voice actors.
Mhm.
I know, it's incredible. But yeah, I think that's I mean, to move forward from that, I think we can, take that and then lean into maybe what kind of like looking at modern JRPG developers and looking at like, we've looked at from our first experience with JRPGs and our JRPGs from the golden age, quote unquote, what are lessons that some of these modern JRPG developers can learn from that, that period of time from maybe like the 90s to the early 2000s when it was like nostalgia really hits hard on those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my problem with a lot of JRPGs nowadays is that, number one, they seem very handholdy. It's very go from point A to go to point B. Here's the little star on the mini map, and if you can't figure out where the star is on the mini map because you're just like a moron, then here's it written out for you too. Here's it also on the larger map. If you really need it, we're gonna draw a line for you.
Yeah,
like it's
unbelievable. Like, what happened to that sense of exploration?
Adventure.
Like you brought up the Dragon Quest III remake. And I remember whenever I first got the ship and I went to Portugal and I got the ship and they were like, you need to go out, you need to find the orbs. They actually didn't even tell you that in Portugal. You sailed down to the lighthouse right south of Portugal and then you went up and then the guy said, hey, there's these orbs around here and we don't really know where they are, but you better frickin' find them. And then you went out and you did. You was just basically, hey, you got the ship, go out, sail around, look around, try to find these things. Yeah. But nowadays, like you got the... You got the little talking to by Rubus to go and sit and find the orbs. Then it was you check the map because you're like, oh, I just want to check the map and just, see where I can go to. And it goes, here's all the 7 circles for all the orbs are all just right there. Hey, moron, go here, 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 here. And it's just kind of like, ugh. So it just kind of like removes that sense of exploration. Speaking of exploration, like whatever happened to a traditional world map? Whatever happened to those?
I agree.
Like, I know that people like to sit there and say, oh, JRPGs, they were always linear. No, they weren't. I'm sorry. They weren't. The very, very, very first JRPG, Dragon Warrior, was that linear? No. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
There was nothing blocking you from going from Alefgard all the way down to Cantland if you wanted to. There was nothing blocking you except for just, more powerful monsters. So you got to go wherever it is that you wanted to go to. Same thing in Dragon Warrior 2. It was linear up until you got the ship. Once you got the ship, go out and find the 5 crests, And God, I would have loved to have the freaking circles to find the stupid 5 crests in the NES version of Dragon Warrior 2 because it was like, oh, the fire crest. It's just randomly in this one teleporter where there happen to be torches lit, so that means fire. Or the water crest. Oh, it's just randomly in this jail cell in Hamlin or whatever. It was like so freaking random. No sparklies, no nothing. It was like basically if you don't have a subscription to Nintendo Power, you're screwed, kid.
You're screwed.
So,
sorry.
So
what's that?
I would love it if they had like. So I agree that there's too much. Like when I opened up that map in DQ3, I'm like, oh, okay. So here's all the places I have to go. Like I'm not even gonna bother exploring because like I know where I need to go now.
Yeah.
Like I would love it if there was an option for more hand holding. Like don't make it necessarily the default. Like I can opt in. Let me opt into it. You know what I mean? There are times where like, okay, I need to make some progress. Like, especially like my circumstances might be different than the average player, but like if I'm trying to review a game, I need to get moving. Like I don't have infinite time to play it. Like, okay, hold my hand a little bit, lead me through it. But most of the time, like I just want to kind of find it. It's so fun. That's one thing I loved about Elden Ring. I know we're talking about JRPGs and that's kind of Western, but I loved Elden Ring because it was like, here's a big world. Just go nuts. Like, look around. You'll find so much cool stuff. And that feeling was the first time I've had that feeling since the early days of like 8 and 16-bit games.
I was going to reference that. I was going to reference non-JRPGs to show like how JRPG studios need to do that. Because like, if you look at like, let's say like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom and or Elden Ring as well, like they kind of it was kind of like a throwback to the NES era where it just kind of threw you on a map and it just said, hey, go figure it out. Like you can make this adventure the way you want it to make it and like, just have fun with it. And it doesn't give you really anything that's like leading you. Like there's maybe some things that will lead you in certain directions, but like for the most part, you could just, you're exploring and you're figuring out what cool things you can find on the map and how does that relate to like the overarching story. And so I feel like there needs to be that, but in the JRPG world, like who can bring that mentality and that design structure to the JRPG world and create like a JRPG.
I feel like they've just gone too off the deep end with too much linearity, too much hand holding. Like I said, in Dragon Warrior 2, the first part of it, whenever you went through the world, that was linear. That was handhelding. But then you got the ship, and then it was open. Same thing with the very first Final Fantasy, if you remember. Yeah. You went through the first town, and you had to do the Temple of Fiends. That was the only area that you can go to from Canaria up to the Temple of Fiends. Yep. Then you got the bridge. You go to the second town. You get the boat. Then you're inside the inner sea until you explode the little thing with the TNT. Then you're out into the world. But can you go to all 4 continents? No, you can only go to the lower 2 continents. So you get to the Melmond part and get the Orb of Earth. Yep. Then you get to go over to Crescent Lake. You get the Orb of Fire. Then you get the airship. Then you can go to the upper continents. So it was still kind of handholdy in a way, but it was also open so that you can explore it and you can do it at your leisure. If you wanted to go over to Crescent Lake and do that first, you could. If you wanted to do the ice cave first and then grab the airship and then go up to the upper continents and get, more powerful weapons and armor, then go back to the Gurgu volcano and get the Crystal of Fire, you could do that. You could do it whatever order that you wanted to. It wasn't so A, B, C, D, E. You have to do it in this order, I
find it so interesting, though, especially in modern games, because I feel like there's so many external materials you could refer to if you want the hand-holding experience, like online guides, for example.
And back then we didn't have these external materials, yet it was still not hand-holdy. But now we have guides that will bring you from point A to point B all the way from the beginning to the end of the game. Yeah. But the game is already so hand-holdy. It's like...
It seems a little bit like they're not adapting to modern times, even though it's a modern game.
And I think it's just a product of like modern game structure. If you look at things like, the Assassin's Creed games and all those games that are just basically lists, like on a map of like, hey, you need to hit all these
checklist.
It's like, here's all these sub tasks that you need to do. It's just all these like literally just checking boxes of things. It becomes so, I don't know, just like heartless almost. There's like no it loses no soul to it.
There's no sense of adventure.
Exactly.
It's so methodical. I have to go down this list, get them all done, and then I beat the game.
You know what it is?
It's like they're speed running the game almost.
I think developers are just scared to death of losing somebody because, today compared to back in the 80s and early 90s, there's so many games, and they are afraid that if they put a wall in front of you and they don't tell you explicitly how to get over it, you're going to be like, forget this, throw your controller and play something else. You're going to play Fortnite or whatever.
I can see that.
Yeah, so like, the yellow paint that everybody makes fun of, but like... I don't love the yellow paint, but I know that they've done extensive testing with people, and they're like, if we don't put this here, people don't know what to do, and they get frustrated and quit.
Exactly,
so like,
and it's like
I don't know how to fix the problem.
I think most
they are. I think to an extent, 100%. They are definitely. They are erring way on the side of everybody is an idiot and needs to be helped through this. I don't know what the solution is. I think the option, like that's why I'm saying, like, I would love to have an option, just flip the switch and
like
I get the yellow paint and I get the.
It's like, I think, what's it like? There's a lot of games that do kind of do that still, that like give you the was it Final Fantasy 16 where you can equip the different metal. I forgot.
That's right. Yeah, there was rings of accessibility
that like
in Final
which
Fantasy
was such
16,
a cool idea of like making it part of the game's like structure of like equipment that you use to. It was such a it was a cool way to do it. It's functional. It's creative. Like that was smart. I love the way they did that, but like it's like things like that you can do to make it like, hey, we give these accessibility options, but at the same time, if you don't want to use it and you just want to have a good time and just explore, then go have at it.
Yeah, I'm blinking on some games, but I know there's some other games maybe on the JRPG space. Like if you spend a long time, like, and you didn't find out like the secret or something, they were like, they have like a little whisper, like, do you want a hint? And so you if you need to, lean on that, you can. But
I think the very first game that I ever played that had something like that was actually Tales of the Abyss back on the PS2. There was a puzzle of some sort. I would think it was like a block pushing puzzle, or maybe it was like, don't get seen by the guards as you're infiltrating a castle or whatever. And if you got caught 3 times by the guards, then a little thing would pop up that said, do you want us to just do this for you? And you'd be like, yes, I do, because I suck at stealth missions, So I remember kind of being shocked by that whenever that first happened in Tales of the Abyss.
Yeah, I think it was around that time.
So many times they just let you go.
Every game with stealth missions needs to have that. I'm sorry.
I agree. Because I'm horrible at stealth missions. Like I play RPGs because I'm bad at stuff like that.
Because I'm bad
so
at
whenever that popped up, I'm like, yes, are you kidding me? Duh. Like, do this for me, duh.
I think like
there's some points in like I think in the Trail series where they're bosses you have to fight and you have to beat them. And sometimes they'll be like, "Do you want to just proceed as if you had won?"
There's because that reminds me because like that's actually like I wouldn't say that specifically, but like when they say like, "Hey, do you want to dumb down the difficulty to easy?"
Lower the difficulty bar.
Yeah, do you want to lower the difficulty or things like that?
I thought that was a great implementation of that.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, I want to say that the Dragon Quest III remake has that because it used to be whenever you died, you just died and you went back to your you went back to the last church with half your gold.
Now easy mode, right?
There's an option now whenever you die that's like, hey, do you want to lower the difficulty? Do you want to like half their stats? Do you want to like go back to the menu and redo your equipment or whatever? Or do you want to just go back to the church because you suck, you know?
I think was it for the Dragon Quest III remaster if you have it on the lowest like difficulty setting, you just don't die.
You literally cannot die.
Which is wild.
It's a nice option just to be there if you need it. Yeah. And if you aren't, you don't want
it's great for grinding. You turn that on, you mindlessly grind. You have to worry about it.
If you can toggle it on and off, that's great. Like there are some games like when you lower the difficulty setting, you can't raise it back up.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
And there's somewhere it like turns off the trophies or something too, which is kind of like a slap in the face.
That's what I like about Trails. Trails lets you like, a lot of, I think even Persona lets you do that. Like you get to drop it down to easy and then I just grind it out for a while, just kind of get through some levels and then I bump it back
did
up.
That too.
Yeah.
I did that, especially for 2, I think, when I had to get all those, the gotcha gems.
The gotchas. Yeah.
But like,
speaking of another remake, I don't know if y'all played this one, but it's one of the best remakes of the year, and that's Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven remake.
It's on my list.
Yeah, I need to play
Oh my God. It is so freaking good, y'all. It's by the same team as Trials of Mana remake.
Oh, really?
Which was also another fantastic remake. But the thing about Saga, if you know anything about Saga, is that it's very convoluted. This is a Romancing Saga, which was for the SNES, and I remember playing the SNES version when it first got translated, and it was like they had on-screen encounters, and on-screen encounters was like a big deal, new thing. But that meant like there was a million encounters in this one tiny room because they were like afraid of you not encountering them or whatever. And Saga, it's like kind of like, what do I do next? Well, we're not going to tell you. Just kind of have to figure it out, or what does this ability do, or how do I glimmer, or whatever. But the Romancing Saga 2 remake, it made everything understandable. Like it shows you the tech points that you gained at the end of the battle. So it shows you what you leveled up. It shows you how you're leveling up. It shows you where to go or who to talk to in order to get to the next scene or whatever it is you have to do, which is great because Saga can be
it's
tricky. It helps modernize
so
that series because I know so many people who just avoided like the plague because they're like, I'm not dealing with that.
It's a brutal series.
I wanted to like it. It felt like the hipster series, or it's like I want to be cool and like this series, but I just couldn't do it. But yeah, David, when we played that demo of Romancing Saga 2 in Seattle, like I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a must. I couldn't believe it. This is a must play game for me. And I unfortunately haven't gotten to it yet, but it's on my list to absolutely play because it's just like
they really it doesn't even feel like it doesn't even feel like a Saga game anymore almost. Like it feels like you're playing like an old school Final Fantasy game.
Oh, that's awesome.
They've just redone it so much, they did so much good quality of life stuff to it. It's almost it's a whole other beast, The
glimmer, the changes they made to the glimmer system alone, I'm like, okay, I get it now. Like they put the little light bulb when it's about to glimmer, and it's like, okay, I get, like I understand it a little better now. Yeah. And I tried to play Saga Frontier, and I'm like,
that's what
I remember. No clue. I played Saga Frontier when I was in high school, and I was like, oh my gosh, I loved the 3 Saga games on the Game Boy. And, I know that those are archaic because they're black and white and they're Game Boy, but they were so good. And I was like, what happened? Why is this one of the PlayStation so bad? Whatever, one of the Game Boys were so good.
Yeah, because I remember I played the PlayStation one originally, and I just got my ass handed to me in that game. And that was just, it was brutalizing as a kid, like playing that. So
yeah,
it kind of took me away from wanting to play the other Saga games, but so I'm really glad that like that's kind of a good example of like taking an old retro style game and modernize it in a way that like will bring more people to it.
Right. Oh yeah. I know that the director of Saga said that, so he came out with 2 games this year, Saga Emerald Beyond and the Romancing Saga 2 remake. And Emerald Beyond, you could look at it and you can tell, like, this is cheap, this is budget. It's fun, but it's definitely cheap in budget. Yeah. And it also has this, like, board game aesthetic thing going on, which they started with Unlimited Saga, and I don't know why they keep on doing this Unlimited Saga thing, because that was a dumpster fire. So it's just kind of weird that they're still going on with that. But then he's like, you know, the Romancing Saga 2 remake did so well, like gangbusters. Like it's up for awards and stuff. It's doing so well. And I know he's going to do a remake of Saga Frontier 2. It could be a remake. It could be a remaster. I know that that's coming. He said that it is coming. So maybe the reason why we haven't heard anything more about that is because he knows that Romancing Saga 2 did so well, and he wants to do the same thing for Saga Frontier 2. That would be really cool. That would be amazing.
Do more than just HDify it. Give it a little, you know, facelift.
Just give it a little bit more. Give it a little bit more oomph. Because we already got the HD version of Saga Frontier 1. That already came out, but it needs the oomph of the remake.
Yeah.
It needs that It needs that Romancing Saga 2. It needs that coat of paint on it to make it more accessible. Yeah, you know,
exactly.
With the Saga Frontier remaster, did any of you play that?
No,
I already suffered enough in the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I
didn't want to bring myself.
I haven't really looked into it. Like I'm just wondering if they did any quality of life stuff, or if it's just like an upscale. Like
they probably added a difficulty selector or something. That's probably the end of the story there.
I don't remember there being too much.
I don't think I'm going to go back to it. I just honestly don't think I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah,
I really wanted. So like I said, I aspired to like it.
That's the thing. There's so many games, and if you just put like a new coat of paint on it, it's just kind of like, I played it before. But if you do something like they did with Dragon Quest III or Romancing Saga 2, that's an entirely different experience, and that deserves a new playthrough. Exactly, because there's totally a difference here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge distinction between like how modern like studios need to bring back their games, like especially certain games, like especially if it wasn't like there wasn't a big following initially. Like bringing it back with a new coat of paint, some quality of life, make it like, you know, how Romancing Saga is, and that'll just like, it'll be like playing a whole new game again.
It really is. It really is. It's kind of, I mean, it started this off with first they remade Secret of Mana, which was essentially the same thing but with added bugs and glitches, which was just lovely.
It's so true.
And then they were like, okay, you know, this is okay, but like let's like really do it up with Trials of Mana. And I think that's what really started this like new remake thing that Square Enix is going on to. They saw the success of Trials of Mana, and they did the same thing for Romancing Saga 2, and they're seeing how well that's working, and then they're implementing the HD 2D remakes as well. You know, because it's one thing to remaster something, like they did the Chrono Cross remaster. They did the Saga Frontier remaster. They did the Legend of Mana remaster. And again, those are just kind of like same old coat of paint. It doesn't excite anyone. Yeah. It seems to be just made for a super fan or for somebody who never played the original. It's not going to excite people like us, I don't think. It's not going to make me go out and purchase it personally. Yeah. But if you add in that remake, if you add in just new stuff, something to like really get me excited, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy it. I'm going to play it, and I'm going to talk about it on my channel because I'm going to love it. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, the modern remaster is, I think, good for preservation, or like for people that are curious about old games. It actually makes it possible to play it. But for people like us that have, like, I have Legend of Mana sitting on my shelf.
Same.
Yeah. I could just pop it in the PS3 and play it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not really that appealing to me, but maybe for some people it is. I don't know. Like, I would be curious to hear what people think about the remaster.
It's sometimes nice to have it on a system that, you know, has less of a probability of failing.
Sure.
That's true.
It's true.
So it's nice to at least to have that physically or digitally available on modern like options if you wanted to revisit for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But you can, I think, on the other side, take a remake or remaster and make it too far, where people will kind of be, you know, thinking it's deviating a little bit too far from the original. So there's been, you know, a lot of discourse on Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth. So I will be curious to hear what your guys' take on that. And are we going to maybe see more of these in the future where people be complaining about remasters or whatever?
Well, I can tell you that people will be complaining.
There's always going to be complaining.
I think regardless.
People love to complain.
Yeah.
It's pastime. But to me, it's about the bloat. It's just about the bloat of the game. And it's like, there's one thing. As far as I'm concerned, like the secret of good writing and everything is just brevity. You know, get to the point. Say what you want to say and move on. Don't be like the Trails series where everybody has to say, well, you know, their little thing that they have to say. You know, the whole class has to say, yeah, Reen, go, yay. You know, all that crap.
True, though.
Just like get to the point. Say what it is you have to do, and don't stop the action to make me have to play 4 frickin' mini games to get a swimsuit, because God forbid I can't just buy the stupid thing. You know, it's just like, I just got off the ship, which was full of Queen's Blood mini games. So now let's go and play mini games in Costa del Sol so that I can get over to Golden Saucer. And guess what I'm gonna do with Golden Saucer? I'm gonna play more mini games. And it's just like,
I have to agree with that. Like, I love like that game was amazing, but I was burning out with all the mini games. I think it was
by the time that I got to Golden Saucer, it was start to pause it and then start skip. Yeah. Skip. I was over those freaking mini games. So
I think for me, I got to Gungaga and then I was like, I need to just push through this. Or I'm gonna be like, I can't. Like, I feel like I kind of have an addictive personality when it comes to stuff, and I have to just like, I don't want to get hooked on, you know, 100%ing everything here, because I really just want to experience this game. And also I have 5,000 other games that I need to do.
Yeah. I got to do.
Yeah. And like 100%ing that game would have taken way too long.
Hundreds of hours.
It's too long.
Yeah.
So long.
I just long. Like, even with the amount I did, not even near 100%ing it, I still put in like 90 some hours, almost 100 hours.
I think I was at 110 whenever I finally beat it. Yeah.
It's hard. It's exhausting.
It's mass. And that was with me skipping all these freaking mini games.
Yeah.
Still like 110. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You gotta get rid of the guilt of skipping things in the games.
Oh, you know what? There was a comment earlier today. So I put out a video today about like the 5 best and 5 worst games. And one of my 5 best was Visions of Mana. And somebody commented and was like, I really like Visions of Mana and I really like the story, but all the side quests after every single main event are just dragging me down. I think I'm going to stop playing the game. And I said, why don't you just don't do the side quests?
Stop the side quests.
I feel like a lot of people have
don't do them. Like,
they have to do side quests, or else you're gonna miss out on some like good weapon or piece of armor or whatever.
But if it's getting to the
enhance
point where
their
they
experience,
don't even want to play the game, they're literally wanting to stop playing the game and put it down.
That's really, I think,
just
sad
don't
too.
do the side quests.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you reach that point, definitely just stop with the side quests and just proceed with the story.
Just simmer down, everybody. Just go do your
I'm going to
do your
Marie
main
Kondo
quest.
it. Do what brings you joy. If it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it.
No, 100%. This is like the
That's
second.
good. I feel like Marie Kondo comes up on this show.
Yeah, I feel like we've referenced Marie Kondo quite a few times.
It does not bring me joy.
And I feel like that's exactly
how spark joy. That's what she said. She sparks joy. Yes.
Spark joy. Yeah.
And that should be like the genre of game style that we have. Is that we just play what sparks us joy, and how we play it sparks us joy.
Whatever's giving us the experience that we want to have, and if you are not having the experience you want to have, and you have the option of not having that experience, just changing what you're doing, like just do it. Just do it. I did like
grinding's too much or taking too long. You don't have to finish a game if you don't.
That's fine too. Yeah, like if you're not feeling the game,
standing on YouTube.
I mean, a lot of people treat gaming as a job or a career, like a second job, and it's like, this is a leisure activity. This is just something fun to do, and if it's not fun, skip the side quest.
If it's causing you stress,
drive you further to burnout. If you're just doing
exactly, or a heart attack, at this rate.
Or you're gonna have major health problems. Yeah. So the moral of the story is don't play side quests. They cause heart attacks.
Blood pressure will go up. But unless you love,
unless you like
unless
them,
they spark
in which
you
case
joy,
not doing them,
and therefore do it. But
unless you're Kate Sith throwing boxes in the Shinra basement mansion or whatever. God.
As long as I think developers, they don't make side quests or mini games mandatory. Like, you could throw them in. Like, I don't know if you should spend a lot of development time and money doing that, focusing so much on that.
Well, they did say for the third game they're gonna drop it down.
Yeah, they're cutting down the mini games.
Yeah, because they
think
realized
they're gonna have to.
they realized it was too much, and apparently they said the platinum trophy was way too hard.
Way too hard.
Yeah,
and they're cutting down on the mini games, and now they're going to focus on exploration with the airship, which I think is fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah,
that's what cool. I love about RPGs, is just going around exploring and finding new things, new areas, new discoveries, and that again is why I think that the whole hand-holdy thing is kind of like because it makes you not discover these new things, these new areas.
I totally agree with this. I know when I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and you know, like on their mini map, they show you where everything is. You don't have to do any exploration, basically. Like I remember voicing how like that wasn't as fun of an experience for me compared to say 2, where you could just go anywhere and then you stumbled upon maybe a treasure chest or something. I just had so much more fun doing that than just being kind of given the code book and again, like that checklist we were talking about.
Yeah. Two did a good job with that one. And the same thing, like I wish
they did.
It's like I liked what Final Fantasy was going for in 15. Like you had this like kind of like you can kind of meander, make your way. If it was a little bit more like lived in the world, it would have been a little bit better. If there was more like secrets around that you can find, would have been amazing.
More stuff to find.
Yeah, like if they would have added a bit more of that, I would have been like that would have been like the perfect style where you have this open map and you kind of can go explore and do whatever you want to do. I thought that was like where I was wondering them like that would have been if they kept that trend up and just made it a little bit better and more like impactful.
Yeah, like it just calls to your inner child, I think, when you have to explore and just find new things without being spoon-fed it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about a lot of SNES RPGs. Like, again, with the world map, like, you can just kind of stumble across a town. You can stumble across all these secret areas. Sometimes, like, the world map, like, a little area might just look different. There might be, like, a bush area around a whole bunch of trees. You're like, I wonder what that is. And you just go out and you explore it and you find out, you know? And it's just, like, little things like that, just trying to find those little things. And stuff like that is just gone nowadays. Like, that spark of just exploration, trying to find new stuff. Because I want to say I saw another interview where the developers were talking about not putting in secret areas because they said not everybody will see it. So we don't want to spend development time on something that not everybody will see.
Right.
So that translated into no more secrets, you know? And it's just like, that sucks.
It does.
Yep. It's the exact opposite of the From Software modus operandi, which is like put in all the secret areas and like 5% of people will see them. Yeah. That's one thing I really did like in the Dragon Quest III remake was exploring the world map, and you see like an interesting or like odd looking thing on the map, and it's not marked. You just go to it and like, oh, hey, it's a secret area and there's treasure. There's something interesting there every single time. Like that's a cool, like, it's like they got the assignment, right? Like they understood.
They got the memo. I do wish that, because there's a ton of these secret areas. I just kind of wish that there was a little bit more variety to them, because it's pretty much they're all like an open field, and they either have 2 treasure chests or they have 1 treasure chest and a monster. That's pretty much it. Like, it'd be nice to, like, maybe there's a little house there with some person living inside the house who just has some lore, you know, or something.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
You know, something to maybe tie it back in. Like, here's a little Easter egg about Dragon Quest II. You know, something like that. But it wasn't. It was just kind of like, you know, not to nitpick or anything. But this is a little nitpick. But yeah, just
I think it's good.
Different.
I think it's good to talk about stuff like that, because it is a step. Like, we want to acknowledge that's a step in the right direction. Like, give us these cool things to stumble upon and discover. But, you know, when we do make the discovery, rewarding us in unique and kind of novel ways encourages us to explore more, right? It creates a positive gameplay loop that otherwise we're just not going to have. Like, you know, if I know that I'm going to get a treasure chest from this thing, I may not divert my attention from what I'm doing, right? Like, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's
After
no
I left
incentive.
about right around Baharata or so, it was kind of like, oh, there's a sparkly. It's just going to be a medical herb and a full moon herb and antidote herb. I don't really care. You know, it's just like give me something different in the sparklies. You know what I mean? Just something like that.
Yeah, I think they need to get more creative with that, because it's the same thing. Like, you know, when you play Star Ocean HD 2D, like there's a lot of like the open. Like I thought the world map on that was pretty fun. You can get the big old rabbit that you can ride around and find like treasures and things like that. So like that was cool. But then at some point you're just like, once you get like 2/3 of the way in, you're like, all right, I don't really need that many more items that are like not really gonna impact me at this point.
Little throwaway consumable stuff that you don't use anyway, you know. So kind of like, whatever.
I would like to,
with a little pittance of gold that it hands you or something.
Yeah, like I would say lore dump would be a lot better. Like, give me something.
You know what would be cool? You brought up Star Ocean 2, and you've been bringing up Xenoblade as well. The discovery points. I love discovery points. That would have been a really cool thing to put discovery points in the Dragon Quest game, and maybe each discovery point could just be like, some sort of reference to a different game in the series, or just something. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that Erdrick trilogy. Maybe there was just like a little, here's a painting of the Zenithan Tower or whatever. I don't know. But just something to be like, little Easter eggs, and then maybe have like a little checklist. There's 50 discovery points. If you find all 50, you get a trophy.
Yeah.
I think that would be a nice thing to do.
And
I think that's also just rewards fans, I think.
Yeah.
And Xenoblade and Star Ocean do it really good with the discovery points. Like, those are just fun little, like, because like originally, before even like, if you played Star Ocean 2 on the PS1, like, you just stumble upon those. And I guess it is nice what they did to make it easier to find them in the remaster or the remake. But there is something fun about just stumbling upon it and not just
organically.
Yeah. Like, where it's more of just like, just going through the process of playing the game rather than just being like another checklist again, because they also give you that checklist of like, here's all the ones that you can find.
Right.
Yeah. I know.
So outside of, I guess, exploration and, hand holdingness and all that, is there anything else you think that modern JRPGs are missing that they could, go back to the classics for inspiration?
Something that I see a lot of nowadays that I am just not a fan of is the way that they tell their stories using these still visual novel, I don't know, paint portraits or whatever they are.
Yeah.
I think that that's so cheap and so boring. And it's like, I would much rather them okay, for example, the scene in Final Fantasy IV. We've all seen the scene in Final Fantasy IV where it's in Fabul. You just defended the crystal at Fabul, and then Cain comes in and Golbez comes in, and then Golbez's hand goes and he grabs the crystal or whatever, and he kidnaps Rosa, and then Rydia goes over and casts Cure on the boy. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Imagine if that was shown in just still visual novel cutscenes, rather than everybody walking around and Golbez going over and grabbing Rosa and, Rydia walking around and these other things, watching the crystal get taken. And it's just a still boring cutscene. I hate that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, if you've already have the character designs made, use them for telling the stories too. Have the people move, have them walking around. And please don't have half the story be talking about boob size during a spa or how good the tea tastes. Oh, this tea is brewed deliciously. We got these tea leaves up from the mountain. Oh, this is wonderful. Like, I don't care. Like, no, get to the story that actually matters. I don't care.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's the part of the JRPG world that like it kind of skirts the line of anime. And so, like,
sure, there's a little
what
overlap.
JRPGs have gotten so much more anime since the PS2. Like, they did not used to be like this. I tell people this all the time. Whenever I grew up, they were not anime. And people are like, JRPGs and anime go hand in hand. They didn't for about 20 years. They really didn't.
Yeah.
But nowadays they seem to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's definitely more inclined to be more anime-esque than it is to be like something else outside of that. Like, if you look at up until like the PS2 era, there were games that were still, trending in the anime.
A lot of them didn't come out in America.
But a lot of the
really anime ones didn't come out. There was
that's a good point, actually.
Oh, there was Vilgust. There was the Sailor Moon RPG on the SNES.
Yep.
There was that Magic Knight Rayearth one that only came out, I think, on the Saturn. The one for the SNES didn't come out. There was a Sakura Card Capture one on the PlayStation. There was a lot of these anime games, but only in Japan. And then whenever they started like opening up the floodgates, I don't know if translation got cheaper, production costs got cheaper. I don't know what it was, but we started getting like every single freaking JRPG under the sun. And it's almost, and I hate to even bring this up, but it's almost like back in the day, if a game didn't come out in America, it was almost a form of quality control. Now, that rule does not apply to every single game. There were some great games that we never got. Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy III, Treasure of the Rudras, Bahamut Lagoon, just to name a few. There were some great games that we didn't get, but there was a lot of just dumpster fire freaking trash that was never translated and brought over to America, and it was almost a form of quality control there.
No, that is
I think just the audience, right? Like I don't think
the audience
a lot of that translated well to a Western audience.
Because like at the time, like anime was more niche. Like in itself, like people who are into anime was a lot more niche. Whereas like nowadays it's a lot easier. Like there's a bigger market for that. So it's like it's worth bringing out most of those games. Like it's worth putting in the money to translate and to port them over here nowadays than it was back then. Like nobody really cared as much in that era.
Yeah.
Not enough people cared, at least.
Larger audience.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is true that like the fact that, most of the games we didn't get, probably we're fine having not gotten, like that is good. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you go on to any digital storefront today and look at how many games there are.
Yeah.
If you include indies in there, it's so much.
And the ones that we missed out on usually get fans translated that are worth playing.
The ones that are worth having. Exactly.
There's I'm pretty big in the fan translation scene, and I would say 50% of them are like, whoa, this is really good, and the other 50% is like, what in the hell is this? It's hot garbage,
It's not even worth translating. And I know like we've been talking about Dragon Quest, Star Ocean, and whatnot, and it's like the HD 2D remasters, and I know, David, you did a lot of really great videos on Dragon Quest in general. Like what do you think is like do you think that approach to remakes is more of a novelty? How would you like to see it evolve? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I personally love the HD 2D style. But I'm like a retro gamer guy. Like that's me at heart. I like the retro stuff and I love the retro style. I love the pixel art. Everything that I've played for HD 2D for the most part has been pretty freaking fantastic. So I say open the floodgates, let them all come out. I cannot wait for like the Dragon Warrior 1 and 2 coming out next year to really flesh, especially Dragon Warrior 2. There was a lot left on the cutting room floor of Dragon Warrior 2, and a lot of stuff that wasn't actually included in the final game. They even admitted that once they got to the ship, they quit balancing the game, and that's why the game balance is so wonky after you get the ship in the NES version of the game. They did rebalance it back in the NES or the SNES versions and the Game Boy Color versions and things like that whenever they had time, but they didn't have time in the NES versions of the game, which is very apparent, especially if you know in the very first continent, in the Laurasia continent, if you go over to the left far of Cannock, there's this vast, huge continent. Nothing is in it. There's one cave. There's nothing there. So it's like, why don't you put something there? Why don't you put a village over there? Put something there, put something new. I think that would be really cool if they were able to flesh out the world. Another thing, as far as leaving things on the cutting room floor, Secret of Mana. We talked about Secret of Mana. But if you play the game, it takes quite a bit of time to get like the first 4 mana spirits. And then the last 4 mana spirits, it's boom, 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 boom. They just kind of come in quick succession because there was a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor. I think that these remakes, not only is it a good idea to bring these games out for a modern audience, but it's a really good way for them to go back and they could say, hey, how did we want to make this game? Now that we have time to do it, now that we don't have these time constraints or these technological constraints or whatever it was that wouldn't let them do it back at the time, now they can. And what can they add? What can they do to flesh it out? Not only to flesh it out to make the game just better, but also, again, to make it more exciting for people like us who've already played the original game. I have played Secret of Mana, and I even played the remake. There wasn't much to the remake. Like I said before. However, if they brought in the things that were left on the cutting room floor, that would have like really excited me. That would have been freaking great. Like it's kind of like ridiculous. I think it's Lumina, where you just climb like a lighthouse and boom, there she is. It's like nothing to get Lumina. I think Luna, it's you just like you like take a boat ride across the desert and boom, there's Luna. Like she's just kind of there. So
more opportunities
so things like
for
that could have been fleshed out.
That's so.
I love it, especially
too, is something we bring up a lot.
Oh
so,
my God,
Xenogears, yes. Clean that up.
I think it's especially great if the original creators can be involved in the remake, is because it's like
we can see their vision take
another let them take another crack at it. Like they have all these years of additional experience having made games. Let them go back to this game that they obviously care about a lot and like take another swing at it and see what else they can, how they can beef it up in the ways that they maybe couldn't back in the day. I think that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to like a lot of media right now, there's been a lot of, discourse around, well, we're doing too many remasters or remakes. There's nothing new and innovative anymore. But I think we have a lot of opportunities now to improve upon maybe what we had back in the day and actually see a lot of, these stories unfold in their true, however, their true capacity or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of remakes coming up now that you mentioned that. I was actually working on a video of like my most anticipated games coming out next year. And it's like, well, there's Lunar 1 and 2. There's Suikoden 1 and 2. There's Tales of Grace's F. Like, there's so freaking many. I think I want to say like 7 out of the 10 were just remakes or remasters. And I'm like, I want these games, but like, where are like the new games? You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a lot.
Yeah. That's what I'm seeing for next year. Next year seems to be a very heavy remaster kind of year. Unless like they haven't announced a bunch of stuff that's going to come out this year, so hopefully we get some surprises there. But David, you brought up like rebalancing, and I think Lunar is a great case of that, because like if you look at like the original Lunar games, and one of the things that I love me some what's it called, what's the company,
Working Designs.
Yeah, Working Design. I love me some Working Designs. But the one thing they would do is they would take those games and they're like, you know what, let's like turn this up to 11 and make this real hard and add like a bunch of like battles, and it became a little bit monotonous from that perspective. Even
do you know why they did that?
To pad it out?
No, they did it. They did it specifically for the Western market.
Yeah, they did it
because in Japan, renting a game is not a thing. It's not really legal to rent a game. But over here, we had a rental game market. So they were like, hey, we need to make these games harder so that people can't just like, beat them in a rental period of 2 or 3 days or whatever and then return it.
That makes sense.
So that's why they did it. Yeah. That's why Working Designs
sneaky jerks.
I know. And like,
no kidding.
And people don't like it enough that like, I mean, you can go out there, there's like mods like or versions of, they call it the unworking design versions that you can download that keeps the dialogue. You get all the corn, you get all the cheese with it, but it cleans up the balancing situation. It makes it a lot easier to deal with, and the level of difficulty stays stable to what the Japanese version was supposed to be. And I'm looking forward to that aspect of being able to play through the games and not have to get like frustrated with anything, even though I love the Lunar games. They're like one of my favorites growing up. So
same. That will be good to see the game kind of as it was originally intended, despite the affection I have for the Working Designs.
I'm still sad that
I heard that they're not going to use the Working Designs translations or the Working Designs voice actors either.
Yeah, I'm a little sad
that's
about
kind
that.
of upsetting to me.
I would love it as an option.
It needs to be an option.
I'd love it to have it as an option,
because I want that to be like the definitive way to play the game, and to have the definitive way, I want the option to choose between like, hey, I would like, they can retranslate it, do that. Awesome. I love that. And I would probably want to play the retranslation of it because it's something new.
See what's different.
Yeah, it's something new.
Exactly.
Something to excite me.
Exactly. And it's like kind of what we were talking about earlier, is like it gives me a reason to replay it because it'll be different, but also going back and being able to play the Working Design version if I want to. Like, we want that option. Like, we all want options, and that's like, when they don't give us that option, it's kind of a little like disappointing there.
Let me listen to that extra corny music.
Exactly. They translate.
I just want the boat song to say the same.
I know.
Like, I just want the boat song. That's all I want. The boat song.
The intro song. I used to get goosebumps as a kid listening to that song.
I would take the soundtrack and put it in my CD player and just listen to the boat song and repeat constantly.
I love it. I love those songs, and the fact that we're not going to get that is just, it takes away from it.
It does sting a bit.
Yeah. It's sad. I want a remastered version of that song.
I know.
Like, I want to hear that.
So remasters can be good. I think we're all on relatively the same page there. Are there any things, David, in like the battles, the way battles are done today versus the old days, that you would like to see done differently in modern JRPGs.
So there's been a lot of dialogue on turn-based is dead. But then there's the other dialogue of the only reason why we have turn-based is because of technological limitations of the time. No. Like, I love turn-based games. That's what I grew up on. And turn-based games are still selling like hotcakes today. Look at Metaphor. Look at Dragon Quest III. Look at some of these other games. Romancing Saga 2. These turn-based games are doing great. And then you have other companies who shall remain nameless, Square Enix, who says that their games only, they set the trends. They don't follow the trends. And then they came out with Final Fantasy 16, which obviously followed the trends. And did it do all that well? No, it sold under expectations. And then they're talking about Rebirth and how that failed to meet expectations. Although you take that with a grain of salt, because I swear to God, every single time that Square Enix opens their mouth, there's always fails to meet expectations.
What are their expectations at this point? Like, I don't even know.
They're so high.
They're so high. They're so high. I don't know. But like, they're selling really, really, really well. But the thing is that people, in general, people are creatures of habit. People like things to stay the same. People don't like things to change all the time. I was a teacher for many, many, many years. And one of the things that I learned as a teacher was that people are a creature of habit. And so you go ahead and the very first day of school, you set expectations and you set the rules of the classroom. And then because it will become a habit, that's the rules and people don't really think about it. You know? So it's the same sort of thing. If people see a Final Fantasy game and they've been playing Final Fantasy since they were in 3rd grade, they kind of know what they want to expect in a Final Fantasy game. And then it just like changed. It went off the deep end so quickly that people are like, what is this? They're chasing this audience that I don't know if the audience actually exists.
No, like look at Pokemon. They haven't changed the formula really. And there's still an audience there.
I know, seriously. Exactly. And what scares me is that I feel like they want to change the formula for Dragon Quest. I remember this first came out whenever Dragon Quest IX was in development. They were saying they wanted to make it an action RPG. And then the Japanese fans, like, they revolted. And then they were like, okay, we're going to make it turn-based. And then the latest thing with Dragon Quest 12 is we're going to make it adult. Whatever that means. I mean, Dragon Quest has always been adult. So, I mean, has a kiddie graphical style, but the story has always been adult. You have, characters being sold into slavery. You have them getting married. You have them having kids. You have a father dying in front of your eyeballs in Zoma's castle. There's all sorts of different stuff in Dragon Quest games that are very adult themes, but then they want to make it adult.
What do they mean by that? Do they just mean edgy? Adult? Like, is that edginess? I don't know. Like, that's... Are they like... That
maybe
like
instead of the Puff Girls, they
just
make it a little bit more explicit. I don't know.
They'll just go full...
adult means either.
They're not going to beat around the bush with that anymore?
I guess,
I don't know.
It's not going to be
Like, I don't know.
That seems like that would be a misjudgment of what people are wanting.
My guess is there's going to be blood. Things. We'll see graphical blood.
Maybe.
Maybe. I guess they could do that. Like, that could be like the biggest thing. But like, honestly, everything else, like, like David said, like this, it's very Shakespearean in a way that like the stories take place. They're very dramatic. They're very like, there's a lot of like ego and a lot of like, anger and like it's just, there's everything there that would make it already adult to begin with. So
the thing that worries me actually that you say that is, what if because Dragon Quest does have serious stories, but it also mixes in so much whimsy. Like, it's a very whimsical series. Do they mean they're going to stop being whimsical?
Jokes and things like that?
Yeah, like, are they going to stop with that? Are they going to stop being whimsical? Because I feel like that's a mistake. No. Like if they made it a hard-edged, like, dark fantasy like Final Fantasy 16, that would be the biggest
That would be a massive mistake. Honestly, I think that 17 is going to go back to the basics. This is my prediction. 17, HD 2D, back to the basics, kind of a Final Fantasy 6-y sort of thing. I'm really thinking that they're going to do a back to the basics approach with Final Fantasy 17, a reboot, a reset. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Square Enix has been doing that for all of their series. Look at Star Ocean. Look at Star Ocean 6. That came back as a back to the basics from Star Ocean 2 with dual protagonists and multiple worlds to go out and explore and everything else like that. And then they did the remake of Star Ocean 2. They did the same thing. If you look at their strategy RPGs, Triangle Strategies, going back to almost Final Fantasy Tactics, they put out Tactics Ogre. You know, all these kind of back to the basics sort of games. They're doing HD 2D for Dragon Quest. They're doing a lot of back to the basic stuff.
Visions
and they're
of
seeing
Mana,
all these other companies remaking all these older games, and how these older games, these remakes, are doing so well. So like, you know what? Maybe if it's not broke, don't fix it. Let's go back to what worked.
Maybe they'll bring Sakaguchi.
Yeah. And then looking at the numbers for the Dragon Quest 3 remake, like, I think that says enough. Like, you should stick with this formula.
Yeah.
No,
especially in Japan. Like, it's sold like hotcakes.
Yeah. They're not changing anything.
I completely agree. Like, Final Fantasy.
You know what? I'm wondering. I wonder if the reason why we haven't seen any footage of Dragon Quest 12 is because they started off by making it action, and then they saw how all these back to the basics approaches worked, and like, no, let's not do the action. You know?
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's totally possible.
Yeah, because it's like
maybe they'll take that action engine that they made and they'll turn it into a Heroes game or a spin-off game or something like that.
Yeah.
Because another thing is, if you look at Dragon Quest Treasures, that was supposed to be a Dragon Quest Monsters game. Did it sell all that well? No, because it was action. And then that came out in like January. But December of that year, Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince came out, which was turn-based. And that sold a lot better than the Dragon Quest Treasures.
Yeah.
So yeah, put me on your marketing team, Square Enix. I know what I'm talking about.
No, it's true. I think Square
Back
Enix...
to basics. Let your series have their unique identities. Like the thing you said, David, about Final Fantasy resonates with me so strongly because this has been bothering me for years. Like after Final Fantasy X, every Final Fantasy was drastically different than the one before it.
Yeah.
Crazy different. Like pick a lane, you know, like this is what Final Fantasy is. This is what Dragon Quest
oddly
is.
enough,
Make it
No, sorry, go ahead.
Just gonna say, if you want to do something different, make a new IP. Like, let's take a new series.
100%.
Let's start a new series.
Yes.
And, why not?
Yes. Oddly enough, like I think like Final Fantasy 13, despite the crap that it gets, is the closest thing to like a good combat system in a Final Fantasy game since 10. Just because it was turn based, but it was also kind of cool because you had like these build outs that you'd switch between. And kind of like,
they brought a
I like
unique
the
element
paradigm
to it.
shifting.
Yeah.
I like things like that. But my main thing, the reason why I give it is just because
the rest of it,
half the characters I wanted to smack across the
100%.
face, and then the hallway simulator thing.
Yeah.
Just
I never got past that. I played it for my library's copy and like I didn't re-rent it.
And I'm a little over the whole idea of like, hey, we have a story, but you have to look for it. Like especially when you're talking about like a really inherent story to these characters are all driven by something very serious, but like you don't know, you have to like really dig into like all this extra material to figure out why.
Oh, you got to read the encyclopedia.
The encyclopedia had the whole background to like why everyone's the way they are, rather than integrating it into the story. Like,
I don't want to read an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, show me the story.
Exactly.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
You know,
you've got this beautiful visual storytelling medium that you're using to make me read text on a
exactly on a screen. Like I'm not going
to
want to read that.
And don't put your story into a novel either. Like don't do that either.
Yeah.
You know? Like come on.
If you want to do novels, I'm all for it, but like it should be supplementary. It should be like
supplementary, something different, like 20 years later or something like that. Not
I'm down for that. Sure.
Kind of like was it the Ys 8 novel? Where did they make
Ys 8 did one, but 15 did one too. Final Fantasy 15 did one.
That's true. Well. Yeah.
That's really what I was referring to.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Because I think that the Ys 8 one is just a novelization of the game itself.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no.
Whereas the 15 one is kind of like telling the story. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things to consider on this topic because while we want these franchises to stay in their own lane, I think they still have to do some little things to make it fresh and not stale like Pokemon has become. So it's a fine line, I think. But I think we're mostly in favor of them kind of sticking to what they've been good at and maybe just slight modifications over time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Yeah. And they did a good job with that between like 7, 8, 9, 10. Like each variation of the battle system was slightly different, but fun. Even though sometimes it was, 2 steps back, 1 step back, depending on how you looked at it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
But it always tried to do something different within the bounds of what you think a Final Fantasy game should be and what you want it to be. So I think that's what they need to judge they know who they love, like, you know, who their audience is. They just need to like own that. I think they're trying to always pull people in from the fringe, like all the people who are playing Call of Duty or all the people who are playing like all like, you know, the Assassin's Creed games. Like they want to just bring them in to this world, and you're like, like I get it, you want to, but
they're not going to play.
You're going to please
but
nobody.
Also alienate their
nobody.
core fan base
exactly.
at the same time.
Like because that's not their bread and butter and what kind of games they like to play. So like you're just going to alienate your your fans, but then you're also not going to bring in everyone else too. So that's why you're not selling as much as you want it to, I guess.
As your expectations
of sorts.
Well, we want to be obviously respectful of your time, David, and we're at about an hour here. So does anybody have any closing thoughts on this topic today?
We are in a golden age right now. We've talked about the golden age of RPGs, and we have gone through some scary times. Mostly when the HD twins hit the scene, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and RPGs kind of like, they fell. But we are back in a golden age. We're back in a renaissance of JRPGs. So I don't think that this is a doom and gloom sort of thing. I think that we have reason to be excited, reason to look forward to things. Like last year, banger year. This year, I'm putting together my awards shows and things like that. And it's like, I can't, literally, it's the hardest decision of which game is the game of the year. What is it? I cannot decide what the actual number one game is. It's so difficult.
It really is.
And then putting together a list of upcoming games that I'm excited for next year. I tried to keep it to 10. I was up to like 15. And I had to like sit there and be like, well, what games are going to cut out to make it the top 10? You know, like there's so many. So this is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are being spoiled
truly
here.
An embarrassment of riches. Yes.
Embarrassment of riches.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
When I have to make choices of which ones I need to buy on a weekly basis.
I know. Like I remember being a kid and being like, wow, we're so lucky we got 3 JRPGs this year. You know?
Oh, I know.
Exactly.
Look at us now.
That was a big year, right? Like this is something else. So yeah, I don't think we could put it better than that. Like we are in a golden age, and we need to enjoy it while it's here because you never know.
Yep.
Never know. So
how the industry's going, we'll have a little bit of a lull again.
Yeah. Well, just it's
entirely possible.
Everybody put your money where your mouth is, and you know, use your money to support the customers.
Support the games that you love, and they'll keep on coming out with more of them.
Exactly. Buy the games that you love, and then they'll just keep making them. So,
yep. That's
fantastic. Well, David, thank you once again for joining us. This has been fantastic. Obviously, we're all a fan of your work, and why don't you tell us where we can find you in case somebody who's listening doesn't know your channel? It seems unlikely, but just in case.
Sure. I am at David Vink RPGs on YouTube. I'm also the David Vink on Twitter and Bluesky, as well as Instagram. Again, I just talk about news and reviews and top 10s and just my opinion on JRPGs, modern and retro. Anything that I think is interesting to me, I'm sure is interesting to y'all, and I like to talk about it.
Awesome. And Dalla, where can we find you?
You can find me at Dalla998 on the Twitter and the Bluesky.
Awesome. Emily?
And I'm Orbalology on YouTube as well as other social media platforms.
And I'm Just the Gems on YouTube, and just search for me on social media. I'm so tired of having to explain how I can't secure the. Just type in Just the. You'll find me. It's always my dumb face as the picture. Nobody steal my identity though. Don't take this as an implicit permission to steal my identity. Not okay with that. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Thanks once again to David, and I guess that'll do it for this week. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much.